And from Warsaw, Ohio, we're back to our main topic of the day. Péter Magyar has been officially sworn in as Hungary's Prime Minister. And to talk about the end of Orbán's era and the new opening in Budapest, we're joined by Roland Freudenstein, co-founder of Brussels Freedom Hub. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
So Hungary has a new government. What does this new opening mean for the country itself and, well, for the whole of EU?
Well, to sum it up, I would say it's a great day for Hungary, it's a great day for Europe, and it's a great day for freedom globally, because an autocrat has been beaten by his own weapons, in a way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was quite brief. Now let's then take a closer look at the cabinet lineup, as it is comprised of well, no real politicians, but rather business executives and academics. So it sounds like an interesting experiment. But is this really what the Hungarians were hoping for?
I think so. They wanted a less ideological government. They wanted less of an oppressive system, which Viktor Orbán had actually built in Hungary. And they wanted an end to the corruption and the economic decline into which he has taken the country over the last 16 years. So they were deeply unsatisfied with Viktor Orbán and his style of government and this constant definition of Hungary as the opponent to some kind of Brussels conspiracy with George Soros somewhere in the background. So, you know, they were deeply unhappy about this. And I think the composition of Péter Magyar's cabinet, like made up of experts, of people partly coming from really outside politics, knowing their business, is exactly an expression of this new spirit that let's do politics for the people and not position Hungary as the agent of dictators across the world, such as Russia and China. And I think also the Trump factor actually played in Magyar's favor and Orbán's disfavor, this meddling of Trump, Rubio and Vance in the Hungarian election campaign. So, you know, the new cabinet and the first pronouncements of Magyar are exactly an expression of this spirit.
Right. So the spirit is there, but the hard work is ahead of future ministers. What are the main tasks ahead of the new government?
Well, the most urgent thing for the moment seems to be unfreezing the 10 billion EU recovery funds that were held back because Viktor Orbán and his Fidesz government could not guarantee a proper distribution of these funds according to the rule of law. I mean, you know, they had single bidder public procurement processes. They were violating EU rules for public procurement on so many fronts. They had a completely leaky institutional infrastructure to fight corruption. And yes, they did have massive corruption, which was absolutely visible for everyone. So Péter Magyar will now have to put procedures in place, and in some cases institutions in place, to actually satisfy the high standards of fighting corruption and making public procurement fair for everybody. And there is a deadline at the end of August by which the new Hungarian government will have to have done all this. Otherwise, they will not get those funds. We're talking about 10 billion euros, which are direly needed for a country as deeply indebted as Hungary is, thanks to Viktor Orbán's last-minute spending before the election.
As we're talking about deadlines and money, a recent survey shows that the majority of Hungarians would like the country to stick to Russian fossil fuels, while the EU wants to phase them out by the end of the next year. So could this potentially lead to a conflict between Budapest and Brussels?
I don't think so. I mean, the new Hungarian government is clearly looking at diversifying from Russia in terms of energy supplies. They're looking at particularly an LNG terminal in Croatia, which would make the country less dependent on Russian energy deliveries. And, it always depends on how you ask the questions. Hungarians were deeply unhappy about the dependency, politically and in energy terms, on Russia, the dictatorship. They may appreciate cheap energy, but depending on how you phrase that problem, how you frame this question, I think most Hungarians will be extremely happy to be less dependent on Russia. And of course, there are things that Hungary and its partners in Brussels and member state capitals can do to make that more affordable for Hungary.
Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico has posted a picture with himself, Poland's Donald Tusk, and Czechia's Andrej Babiš, saying that 3 musketeers are waiting for the 4th, obviously meaning Hungary's Péter Magyar. And the aim is to revive the V4 format. How do you see the future of this regional cooperation platform after Viktor Orbán left office?
Well, the Visegrad cooperation was a great idea. It's pragmatic, cross-border cooperation, sometimes coordination, because that was the root of the origin of the Visegrad Group, was coordination in negotiations for EU membership, before that membership happened in 2004. Later on, it became a regional a cooperation instrument, which had lots of practical purposes. Now, then came Viktor Orbán, who charged this whole initiative with ideological content, somehow pretending that this group of countries presents a not only political but also ideological and even societal alternative to the allegedly decadent West European systems of decision-making and social systems. And that actually was about to wreck the Visegrad cooperation before Viktor Orbán got voted out of office. And I think it's time for a new start. Robert Fico is also a national populist. He participated in the Moscow celebrations of Dzień Pobedy today, but he is much more pragmatic and less ideological than Viktor Orbán, so he will just play along with the others. And if Visegrad is now reinvented as a pragmatic instrument, all the better for everybody, for the 4 countries in Central Europe and for their partners in the European Union.
Roland Freudenstein, co-founder of Brussels Freedom Hub, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more interviews and news here on TVP World.